So my name is Nicolas. Some of you are wondering why we're talking about EDHEC Climate Institute associated with a business school. We've noticed a sort of gap between Google Scholar and the needs of companies. And so EDHEC Climate Institute is an applied research center that produces fundamental research, open access, transparent, that feeds the product of the EDHEC-owned ventures. We work at the macroeconomic level. So basically trying to understand what are the future GDP or GVA losses induced by physical risk and trying to project that over time, over space, and across sectors, which is the ultimate fundamental goal of some of the research we're doing. More and more interdisciplinary research centers. So instead of having just pure econ, pure climate science, you will have kind of geography and environment research center that basically have in the same room a statistician, economists, econometrician, and climate scientists, people working on pollution. Climate change is a public good problem. So the idea is that you have to fundamentally put different profiles in the same room to get answers. We often talk about physical risk, but there are two components in it. You have the acute component, which are often zonal, hard to predict, short-term, extreme events that are often discrete, so they have a binary occurrence. And you have the chronic component of physical risk, this sort of hidden underlying engine that is basically the long-term shifts in climate normals. So long-term average temperature change, shift in precipitation regime, etc. And so you have the combination of both. And when you're trying to compute the financial materiality, what is difficult is actually using the right data to get the right output. So as of 2026, there was no such things as sector-specific macroeconomic damage functions, which means that up to 2026, we were able to give you information about GDP damages in your country / in your region, but there was no information about the intra-sector distribution within that GDP. And so we've been doing a lot of work trying to basically open the umbrella of sector-specific trajectories to explain how short-term micro-level losses accumulate over time and aggregate up to form the global impact on your GDP. But we know that the distribution of damages will be highly heterogeneous across space and therefore across states. What you need to do, because you do not have access to grid cell level data on GDP, we can use population proxy because people tend to live where industries are. And we use that to basically proxy the distribution of economic activity. A lot of people, basically, they use NGFS data into the valuation model. Physical risk entered through both sides of your valuation model, your cash flow path, and your discount rate. And if you are uncertain about your input, about the macroeconomic damages, everyone who is consuming it is diffusing that uncertainty into models. So the nerdy research actually matters. Work trying to basically downscale this output such that we can tell and unveil the heterogeneity story of physical risk. And then you can plug. So you have two momentums. On the one side, we've talked about the macroeconomic parts, the data, and the GDP time series. On the other side, you have a lot of work trying to understand the operational geography of listed equities, because you need to do a matching. You have your listed equity, it relates to a space / multiple sectors, and you have to find a way to plug your toy. So these two momentum have to be conducted simultaneously. If I have a hypergranularity on one side and I am unable to go beyond headquarters for a listed equity, I miss out on some relevant information for investors. So you have these two sides of the story. And this is where fundamental research, sometimes boring, is actually very, very useful. It is very difficult. And so this is when I'm trying to highlight that it is very important to do fundamental research before, publish a paper, communicate on them, make them transparent, make them peer review, because then you can extract all the juice of that research and put that into product where you know that the main competitive edge of your product is not the marketing packaging, it is the scientific content. And so this is where we find our contribution at the EDHEC Climate Institute.